This is Edward October, host of OctoberPod on YouTube. Hear that jingle jingle? It could be Kris Kringle, or a home invader looking for an open window, a jilted lover looking for revenge, or a disgruntled coworker hoping to spike your eggnog with arsenic. The girls of our true crime podcast are always on Santa's nice list, but the crimes they discuss are very naughty indeed. Listener discretion is advised.
Hey, Jen.
Hey, Cam, how are ya?
I'm great. What day is it?
It's Day 2.
Two.
It's my day.
It's Jen's day. She's coming.
What, this
up
is the
at
5th
2.
year we've done this? 5 years?
I guess. Our 5th annual? I don't even know.
I don't know.
That's a lot.
Anyway, Merry Christmas. Christmas is right around the corner. It's the 14th.
I've never stuck to anything for 5 years in my life.
I know. Believe me
there
either.
you go.
This is coming to you on December 14th, I believe. And you're getting out there, you're baking those cookies, and we're here to
help make it a little bit better is what we're here for. Maybe.
We're along for the ride.
Or worse, depending.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
All right,
but
so you
we
ready?
love ya. I
do.
am so ready. Let's go.
All right, here we go. There's an old English folktale or poem about an uncle that takes in his niece and nephew after their parents fall ill and die. The uncle really doesn't care for the children. He doesn't want to have them. He doesn't care about them. He just wants their inheritance. So he hires 2 criminals to take them into the woods to kill them. Now, these would-be assassins decide that, you know what, they're not into killing children, but what they do happen to do, they leave them deep into the forest. And then
is this Hansel and Gretel?
Close. That's kind of what Hansel and Gretel was based off of. But there, deep in the forest, these children, they get lost and they starve to death. And the name of this tale is Babes in the Woods. And today, we're going to be discussing a case with the same name. But which one, you may ask yourself, because I know that's what you're doing, because there are 4 cases with the same name. One is from Pine Grove Furnace, Pennsylvania, where 3 sisters were found dead in the woods in 1934. And then later the same day, their father, Elmo Noakes, and a cousin were found dead by a murder-suicide. And honestly, nobody really knows what happened.
So he killed his own 3 kids?
He killed his own 3 kids. What they think, well, this is what is suspected. He was out looking for a job. They were homeless. They were in the car, and they believe the children might have suffered from carbon monoxide poisoning. And then he decided to do the murder-suicide. That's the running theory. Who knows? They didn't think that he loved his kids. They don't think that he actually really killed them in a vicious murder, right? They believe it could have been an accident. Murder-suicide might have a little different, but I don't.
All 3 of them? But okay.
Okay, that's just the working theory. Anyway, then in 1953, 2 unidentified boys were found dead with a woman's cape covering them in Stanley Park, Vancouver, Canada. Now, these boys had been murdered with a hatchet that was found at the scene, and it was determined that they had been killed 5 years before they were found. The young boys were about 6 or 7 years old, and these boys would be identified in February of 2022 as Derek and David Dalton. For years, they went without an identity. Yeah, and their parents died in 1996 or something like that. So a 3rd case was in Sewardstone, Essex in the UK, where 11-year-old Susan Muriel Blatchford and 12-year-old Gary John Hanlon were lured from their homes. Their bodies would be found in a densely wooded area 78 days later, and their killer would confess in 1998. So, with all those, today, we're going to discuss the 4th Babes in the Woods case. Can you believe there's that many that are called
No.
Unreal.
I don't think I've ever heard of this either.
No. All right, so ready? Let's start in with the case we're doing. Up until 1977, the Fellows and the Hadaway families lived very separate lives. They knew of each other, they knew the They were just barely more than acquaintances. That was until Nicola Fellows and Karen Hadaway were born. The two girls lived just doors away from each other on the Mules Coombe estate in Brighton, and despite going to different schools, the two became best friends. On the 9th of October, 1986, Karen and Nicola returned home from school, running through the front doors of their respective homes, eager to get changed and play outside. Nicola's mother, Sue, told the Mirror newspaper, quote, "She came in, chucked her shoes off, and pulled the other ones on, and said she was going out to play. Now I wish I'd said more." According to Sue, the last time she saw the girls was at 5 p.m. when they played outside their neighbor's house with a group of friends. Shortly after this, the girls headed to Wild Park, despite knowing that they were not allowed to go there. Nicola told her parents that the, quote, boogeyman lived in there in hopes of scaring her away from ever entering. Sadly, for unknown reasons, the girls entered the park that afternoon. The girls were spotted around 5:15 p.m. by a park policeman playing on some trees. The policeman warned them that they would hurt themselves. According to a reconstruction featured on Crime Watch a week after the murders, the girls left the park about a half an hour later, where they were believed to have been seen outside a fish and chip shop. It's believed the girls then walked through the subway, taking them under the A27 and back towards Wild Park. They were then seen outside of another fish shop at about 6:20 p.m. by 16-year-old Tracy Cox, who knew the girls and walked them back to the estate. Tracy left the girls near their respective homes. However, 5 minutes later, they told Michelle Tippett, another neighbor, that they were heading back to Wild Park and were seen just outside the entrance to the park at about 6:30 p.m. As the afternoon turned into evening, both families began to worry. 8 p.m. was their usual bedtime, and they both knew to be home by then. But there was no sign of either of them. Unable to wait any longer, Michelle, Karen Hadaway's mother, called 999 and reported Nicola and Karen missing. Nicola's mother, Michelle Hadaway, told Crime Watch, quote, "My Karen wouldn't go off with any strangers. It had to be somebody that Nicola and Karen both knew, both trusted. It's very important for everybody, not just necessarily people on this estate, but on all the estates in Brighton. If you know something, it doesn't matter how small it seems to you. To the police, it's very important. Just get in touch with them. Ring them anonymously if you must do anything. Don't matter how small. Please just get in touch with them because it could save the life of somebody else's child."
That's so sad.
That's horrible.
Heartbreaking.
The entire estate rallied behind the families, offering to help in which way or whatever they could. Police arrived, and a police helicopter was quickly deployed to see if they could find the girls, but to no avail. And as darkness drew in, the families became increasingly concerned. At about 4:20 p.m. the next day, October 10th, two 18-year-old volunteers, Kevin Rowland and his friend Matthew Merchant, made a horrific discovery. Huddled together in a makeshift den in Wild Park were the bodies of Karen and Nicola. An autopsy would later reveal that they had been sexually assaulted before being strangled and left in the woods. Several days later, Sue visited the morgue to see Nicola's body. She told the Mirror newspaper, quote, "She didn't look like her. There was bruising all over her face. Karen Hadaway was the apple of her father's eye." Her mother, Michelle Hadaway, told Cheshire Live, quote, "He was away working at the time, and he heard his daughter had been murdered on the radio. On Saturday, October 11th, he had to go to Brighton Mortuary to identify his daughter. She was our firstborn and the apple of his eye. He went into that mortuary the man I loved and adored and would do anything for, and he came out a complete stranger. I could never get him back. My children have never had the dad he was. His love for him never waned. He could never get over what the killer had done to his little girl. It destroyed him." And she mentioned the killer's name, but we're going to wait until later to actually say it. While the search for the two girls was over, the search for their killer had just begun. Within 5 days of the discovery of the girls, 10,000 people had been interviewed and 4,000 homes had been visited in the search for their killer. Police's suspicions immediately turned to 20-year-old Russell Bishop, a career criminal who, despite portraying himself as a ladies' man, was actually known for lying, stealing, and dating underage girls.
Nice guy.
At the time of the murders, Russell was working as a roofer and living in the ground floor flat in Hollandine, about a mile and a half from Mules Coombe. Russell had joined the 200-man search to locate the girls along with his terrier, Missy, who he claimed to be a highly trained tracker. They always like to join in on the search, don't they? The volunteers recalled that he had been acting suspiciously during the search for Nicola and Karen, and remembered that he had run towards the girls' bodies when they had been discovered. A police officer recalled that while Bishop had run to where the girls were found, he didn't get close enough to see them properly, and the area where the bodies were found was cordoned off so the police could perform a detailed forensic search of the scene. During the weeks following the murders, police monitored Bishop closely and brought him in for questioning several times, and with each visit, his story changed. He initially told detectives that on the evening of the 9th, he went to Mulescombe to steal a car from the nearby campus of the University of Sussex. Then he claimed that he had gone to the area to buy a newspaper, but realized he didn't have any money. And then yet another story, Russell told police that he had planned to see his girlfriend that evening, but didn't go because he had bought some weed or cannabis and decided to just go home instead. Ever-changing stories of Russell Bishop. On the 31st of October, Halloween, Russell Bishop was arrested on suspicion of the murders of Karen and Nicola. He wouldn't be formally charged with the murders until the 3rd of December of 1986, and he was ordered to remain in custody until a trial date could be appointed. In December of 1987, Russell's trial began, and there he was accused of rape and murder of Nicola Fellows and Karen Hadaway. He testified that any trace evidence found on the girls was a result of him checking their bodies for a pulse when they were found in the event that he would need to administer CPR. This was quickly disputed by the prosecution as he wasn't anywhere near the girls' bodies when they were discovered. According to court documents, it's believed that Russell approached the girls and forced them to a concealed area in Wild Park, where he punched Nicola in the face. He later confessed that he had done this as a punishment for calling his 16-year-old girlfriend, Marion Stevenson, a slag. Because, you want to punish little girls for calling your underage girlfriend.
Obviously.
Yeah.
What else are you supposed
That's what
to
you're,
do?
yeah, you're supposed to hurt little girls like that. He then sexually assaulted the girls before strangling them to death with his bare hands. Those who initially discovered the crime scene said that one of the girls had foam coming out of their mouth, and Karen's head had been resting on Nicola's arms, indicating that they had been positioned like that. Russell's defense suggested that he could not have been responsible for the murders, as he was seen outside a fish and chip shop around 6:30. This time is significant as this was the estimated time of death. The defense failed to acknowledge that the pathologist and forensic investigation team failed to take the temperatures of Karen and Nicola. Without this, they would have been unable to state an accurate time of death, leaving them to create an estimate, which would later hurt the prosecution's case, leaving them unable to challenge Russell's alibi. Forensic experts later estimated that the girls could have died anywhere between 5:15 p.m. and 6:30 p.m. It was determined that Karen and Nicola had been manually strangled to death, but the forensic photographer had failed to measure hand marks or fingerprints the killer had left and did not analyze a blood stain found in Karen's underwear. In the days after the girls were discovered, police found a blue Pinto brand sweatshirt, the same sweatshirt Russell had worn the night the girls were murdered. It was discarded on the railway line at Mulescombe Station. The sweatshirt had a strong smell of sweat and bore red stains. And much like every other piece of evidence in this case, police had yet again failed to properly process it, rendering it all but useless. Since the sweatshirt had not been processed correctly, Bishop's defense team could use this to their advantage and convince the jury that it was not a reliable source of evidence. Unfortunately, the failings of the crime scene investigators were instrumental to the downfall of this case. After just 2 hours of deliberating, Russell Bishop was acquitted of all charges on the 10th of December, 1987. Yes, the jury was prompted by the judge, quote, unless the jury were sure first that the girls were dead by 6:30 p.m., they should acquit.
No.
Yes, he walked free. screamed
Did they
out.
get him later?
He screamed out, I didn't do it. I'm innocent. Yeah, bastard. Trust me. Well, let's listen. We'll go on with the case, right? In 1987, Russell was captured by journalists in Brighton City Center, handing out leaflets pleading for information regarding to the murders of Karen and Nicola. Then,
as a parent, what? Honestly, like how?
Oh, just wait.
Sometimes you might crawl over that little barrier, and you know what I'm saying?
You ain't heard nothing yet, lady. Listen to this. Bishop then went one step further and began harassing Barry Fellows, Nicola's father, claiming that Barry was the one responsible for the sexual assault and murder of his daughter and her best friend.
Oh, okay.
He continued his torment by spreading lies around the estate about Barry and spray painted Fellows out on the Fellows' home. Barry Fellows also told Sir Trevor McDonald in an ITV documentary, quote, Bishop knocks on my door and the first words out of his mouth, quote, I didn't top the girls, not how are you. The death of their daughter.
Wait, what does top the girls mean?
I didn't kill, I'm assuming. I didn't top the girl, like kill.
Oh, okay.
British slang. That's what I'm assuming. If anybody out there knows for sure, just let us know.
Okay.
Maybe it's have sex with. I'm not for sure.
That's what I was thinking. Mm-hmm. That's where I went. That's where my mind went.
The death of their daughter and the subsequent harassment from her killer eventually caused Sue and Barry Fellows to separate. In February of 1990, Russell Bishop was once again in the police radar when he was accused of a crime resembling the murders of Karen and Nicola. A 7-year-old girl identified Russell as the man who kidnapped, raped, and attempted to murder her in White Hawk Estate, which is in another part of Brighton, on the 1st of February 1990. This little girl was on her way to a shop to get some candy when Bishop grabbed her in his little red car. He left the poor girl for dead. He strangled her, left her for dead, but she came to and she stumbled out of this wooded area completely naked. And when she did, a couple saw her and ran to her to help her. And as they approached her, she asked them if they were kidnappers.
Oh, God.
Breaks my heart.
I was just thinking about seeing a little girl naked running down the street, where your mind would be like, oh my God, honey, what?
She was pretty brave because he put her in his trunk and she grabbed a wrench or something and started pounding on the trunk to get,
thank goodness,
get people.
God.
Yeah. Brave little girl. They actually pulled her in and had her pick him out of a lineup. And she was able to do it, no problem. So pretty strong, very brave girl. On the 3rd of November, 2013, Eurofin's forensic service was asked to reanalyze the evidence recovered from the crime scene. And by 2015, they had recovered a 1,000,000,000 DNA match that confirmed that the blue Pinto sweatshirt found at Mule's Combe train station had belonged to Russell. Russell's DNA was also discovered on Karen's left forearm. And on the 10th of May, 2016, Russell Bishop was removed from his prison cell at Franklin Prison and taken to the local police station, where he was rearrested and formally charged again in the 1986 murders of Nicola Fellows and Karen Hadaway. In December of 2017, the Court of Appeals squashed the 1987 acquittal of Russell and called for a second jury trial slated for the 15th of October in 2018. They had the same thing that we did with the double jeopardy. You couldn't do double jeopardy, but then they had they changed it to add that if there is significant new evidence. Thank you. They changed the double jeopardy law, saying that if new evidence does come about, you can go ahead and retry somebody for the same crime, which isn't really a bad thing, I don't believe.
No, I don't think so either.
So, 52-year-old Russell Bishop's murder trial commenced in October of 2018 at the Old Bailey. While most defense witnesses from 1987 returned as prosecution witnesses for this trial, Russell's girlfriend at the time of the murders, Marion Stevenson, returned as a defense witness. And Fellows did know Dougie Judd, the Fellows family. And quote, I was going to go to the kitchen to get a drink of water because I was thirsty, and you have to go through the front room. I first heard sexual noises, so I turned around to where the noises were coming from, which was the TV. Ew. Nikki was on Dougie's bed with him. Dougie touched her and got on top of her and was having sex. They were both undressed. Then she went on to say that she watched Mr. Fellows and an unknown male for 2 minutes before heading back upstairs and stated that she was sure the girl in the video was Nicola. Barry Fellows denied involvement in the girl's assault and murder or knowledge of homemade pornographic films. He later said that these accusations, quote, it's the worst thing that can ever happen to anyone. You sit or stand there and you take so much crap off one person through his barrister. He had no evidence, none whatsoever. I just wanted to jump out of that box and get him, but I'm told I have to keep my cool. 30 years ago, he would not be living now. So, what a horrible person to accuse a father of a murdered child of all this. Bottom feeders. That's all they are. Absolutely fucking bottom feeders. Anyway, back to the case.
I'm sorry you said an F word, Jen.
Yep. I mean it.
I apologize to the audience.
Dr. Nathaniel Carey, who reviewed the forensic findings from the initial investigation, told the court that Nicola's injuries only occurred around the time of her death. And if there had been sexual abuse within the months leading up to the murders, he would have expected to have found evidence to corroborate this. The prosecution stated that the DNA recovered from Karen's arm had been remarkably preserved, considering DNA was still in its infancy in 1986. The prosecution also discussed the false allegations against Barry Fellows made by Russell, with him telling the court that, quote, the police have spent the past 32 years trying to convict an innocent man, alluding to the fact that Barry was the real killer. Prosecutor Brian Alton told the court, what you have seen unfolding before your eyes is the creation by the defendant of a smokescreen in the hope, quite literally, that he gets away with murder for a second time. Retired Superintendent David Tomlinson, who was in charge of the search of the girls, told the court, quote, I walked along the path, he said. I was conscious that I wanted to keep the disturbance of the scene to a minimum. There was still an amount of undergrowth. With the position of the bodies, it was difficult for me to see what had happened. I was able to see the two bodies, but they were not in a comfortable position. I got the impression one body had been almost thrown or tossed over the other. He told the court about how one of the boys had discovered the bodies, looked as if he was going to pass out. However, Russell, he appeared not to have been affected at all.
Oh, shocker.
I know.
Shocker.
After presenting evidence, calling up witness cross-examinations, and back-and-forth arguments, both sides delivered their closing statements, and the jury was asked to retire to reach a verdict. About 12 hours after deliberation, on the 10th of December 2018, Russell Bishop was found guilty of the murders of Nicola Fellows and Karen Hadaway.
Good. As he should. Mm-hmm.
The following day, he was sentenced to life imprisonment, with the judge suggesting that he serve a minimum of 36 years before he is eligible for parole. Quote, I have no doubt that you are a predatory pedophile, said the judge at sentencing. Quote, the terror the girls must have experienced in their final moments is unimaginable. During this trial, you again falsely pretended you were innocent. You have no remorse whatsoever for what you did. Following Bishop's sentencing, the Fellows and Hadaway families made two statements. The first read, quote, Nicola and Karen are beautiful girls. We will never forget your smiles that would light up a room, their laughter, their cheekiness. During the past 8 weeks, we have endured reliving the horrific details of their murders, and we have learned an awful lot about the true meaning of heartbreak all over again. We stand here as two families united in our grief, united in our fight for justice, and now united in the elation at today's guilty verdict. We are extremely relieved and grateful that our 32 years hard-fought battle has been a success, finally getting the rightful, long-awaited justice for both of our girls. We want to thank our police teams and the council, who have been fantastic during the last couple of decades. If it wasn't for their efforts and dedication working with us, we wouldn't be here today. Together, we have changed history with this double jeopardy ruling, and we finally have the correct outcome. Russell Bishop remains behind bars where he belongs. No, the guilty verdict doesn't bring Nicola and Karen back, But we know that other children are now safe from the hands of Russell Bishop. He is a monster, a predatory pedophile. Russell Bishop is truly evil personified. The second statement made by Michelle Hadaway reads, quote, "After 32 years of fighting, we finally have justice for Karen and Nicola. Time stood still for us in 1986. To us, them beautiful girls will always be 9 years old. They will never grow up. We have been deprived of a happy life to watch them grow into adults, but people like Bishop inflict on the families of their victims is a living death. They take the lives of children, but they also take the lives of the families left behind. Cass and Nikki, as they were affectionately known, friends playing outside only to have their lives wiped out by a sexual deviant, a monster. What's been hard, horrendous, and heartbreaking is to hear that they were murdered by a disgusting pedophile who we actually knew and the two girls liked and trusted. He abused that trust. Bishop doesn't deserve to breathe the same clean air as we do. After all, he decided that day to strangle the life out of our angels, the life out of our two angels, leaving them no air to breathe. What makes a man want to squeeze the life out of two innocent children with his bare hands? Unbelievable when he had a child himself and another on the way. He is a coward without conscience. I don't believe that you can rehabilitate evil. I think Bishop was just born that way. People talk to me of forgiveness, but I can never forgive or forget what evil that monster did to our beautiful Kaz and Nikki. I'm trying so hard to get my head around this, but I will because I'm a fighter and I'll never stop being strong for my family. And on a happy note, I guess, on January...
I'm listening. Keep going.
In January 2022, Russell Bishop died after serving just over 3 years of his sentence.
Ugh.
Because in 2020, he was diagnosed with bowel cancer, which later spread to his brain.
Ugh. Wow.
Hasta la vista, baby.
I
Horrible.
I don't wish ill on anybody, but...
He's a monster. Seriously.
Yeah.
Little girls, grown men who prey on small children.
It's the worst.
Are
That's the worst.
Horrible.
There's a reason that they don't make it in prison.
Yes.
Honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's amazing. Day 2, right?
Yeah.
Woohoo. Day 2.
Day 2's done. Over. Out. Did you get all your cookies baked? Are they all done? Are they ready? Can we come eat them?
How can you make cookies when you think of this? Maybe. I would, but that's just me. As would you.
So anyway, yeah, that's day 2. Tomorrow we've got day 3, and that's back at you, right?
3. Yep. All right. Well, until tomorrow, when we have day 3, we'll be back, and you're stuck with us for 12 days. What can I say? All right, buddy. Until tomorrow, remember, lock your doors.
And keep passing by those open windows.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Love ya.
Happy holidays.
Merry Christmas. Today's episode was researched and written by me, Jen. For more information about this episode, as well as all other sources, please check out our show notes or the podcast website at ourtruecrimepodcast.com. Our True Crime Podcast is developed and created by the hosts, Jen and Cam. Original music and audio mix of all our True Crime Podcast episodes is courtesy of Nico Vertesi from We Talk of Dreams. You can reach Nico at wetalkofdreams.com. Listener discretion is provided by Edward October from OctoberPod VHS. You can find all of his great works on YouTube. Please make sure to like and subscribe to our True Crime Podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. We can be reached on Instagram and Facebook at Our True Crime Podcast or on Twitter with the handle at Our True Crime Pod. You can also email us at ourtruecrimepodcast@gmail.com. We would also at this time like to thank our patrons. We would be so lost without you. Thank you so much. And if you would like to help support the show, you can check us out on patreon.com/Our True Crime Podcast. You can also show your support by leaving a 5-star review on Apple or simply just tell your friends about us. It's that easy. Love ya.